Welcome to r/RedditRevenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. Thank you friends for subscribing to the channel, and for so many likes. The first story. Rude customers throws credit card at me and connects with my eyeball. Gave her a dirty bagel. The second story. Psycho neighbor assaulted my wife for no reason. Forced them to move out and get kicked out of the country. The third story. District manager told me I couldn't have coffee on the sales floor even though I wasn't drinking it. The first story is, don't mess with retail workers who make your food. During most of undergrad, I worked for a coffee shop as a barista. After several months there, I learned the ropes and noticed my coworkers were major pretty revengers. You were nasty to the cashier, you got decaf. Didn't bother getting off your cell phone while placing your order, you got whole milk in your skinny latte. I didn't participate in any of their shenanigans, because I wanted to work with some integrity. Just do my job, brush off any negative interactions, and just clock out. My shift started at the crack of dawn, 5:15 a.m., so I had a lot of regulars coming in for the morning rush. Each regular was polite, except for one miserable bee. MB was a bank teller across the street who came in every weekday, 5 minutes after opening, and expected her order ready for her before she got to the register. She would throw a fit if something was wrong with her order, and she had a tendency of throwing her credit card at the cashiers. Several of us baristas had to deal with her behavior for years. Fast forward to my last semester of college. I had recently gotten a job at an accounting firm and had submitted my resignation. The second to last day, I opened in the morning and MB came in as usual. I had her latte and her charred bagel with butter, the way she likes it ready. She flung her credit card once again, but this time it connected with my eyeball. It took me a minute to recover, and my first reaction was to take away her order, slide her credit card back to her, and told her no one would be serving her today. She completely lost it and started cursing for the next 5 minutes, threatening that I'd lose my job over this. She only left after I told her she'd be escorted out by the police. Last opening at the coffee shop, I'm prepping all the baked items and bagels for the morning rush. As I'm prepping, I dropped a bagel on the floor and suddenly had a devious plan. I can't explain what took over me, but I rubbed that bagel all over the dirtiest crevices on that floor and set it aside. MB comes in again, 5 after opening with no apology, nothing to redeem herself from the day before. I made her latte and burnt that dirty bagel for her. Gave her that generic retail smile and wished her a great day. I clocked out after 5 hours, gave in my uniform, and have never looked back. You're wondering where's the ship's supervisor is while all this is going on. Well, she's twiddling her effing thumbs in the back room because she's really close friends with the manager, which entitles her to be lazy throughout her shift. I've been pushed, cursed out, spat at, and have managed to have a hot drink thrown at me within 3 years of employment there. I've never tampered with anyone's food until that day. She deserved more than just a dirty bagel, and honestly, I really wanted to leap onto that counter and dropkick her in the teeth. The second story is, I forced my Jekyll and Hyde neighbor to move out, but I didn't stop there. We, wife and I, live in a townhouse complex. For anyone outside of my country, it's like a row of houses in a gated community. Our complex has 3 rows with 6 houses and 1 row with 5. Need room for that community pool. The 2 evil neighbors in question lived across from us. The one right across from us, Unit 10, and the one to their right, Unit 11. Not real numbers for obvious reasons. What you need to know is the driveway separating each of the rows. It's wide enough to fit 2 cars okay-ish. If both cars traveling slowly, they can pass each other with ease. When they first moved in, we got along okay with them. I even played games with their kids, 3 each per unit, when walking past to my house from the car park. I thought they were good families, as when the kids did something like kick balls at our wall and not stop, I would tell the parents and the kids got punished. I explain this because in just one day, they went from a nice family to assaulting my wife. We came home from an event, I think the movies one night. Another neighbor of ours made it to the driveway before us, so he was first. The people in number 10, whom I will now refer to as Psycho B and A-hole husband, had their family van parked out front of their house, across from my house. Kids were getting in and out of the van while Psycho B was keeping an eye on things. Our other neighbor who lives on our side of the complex right next to us moved his car slowly past Psycho B in the van first. We will call him Nice Neighbor for now. When Nice Neighbor slowly moved past the van, there was no problem at all. My wife was right behind Nice Neighbor and did the exact same thing, slowly moved her car past in full view of Psycho B. The strange thing is that nothing happened. My wife made it past without even a glare. I go out and open the garage door for her to park the car. We reverse the car into our garage, and I was about to shut the rolling door when Psycho B comes screaming over and yelling, accusing us of trying to run over her kids. She barged into our garage right past me and banged on the driver's side window to the point my wife had to roll the window down, or Psycho B would have broken it. She started pointing a finger and yelling about how dare my wife try and run over her kids. I want to point out that from the time my wife passed the van till the time Psycho B came raging over was 2 minutes. Why didn't she blame nice neighbor? And why didn't she say anything as my wife moved the car past the van? It's like the worst delayed reaction in history, and to this day we still don't know the real reason they had it out for my wife and I. If the real reason was running over the kids, Psycho B would have been in nice neighbor's face or in my wife's face while she moved the car past the van. My wife felt cornered and scared, and I was about to drag Psycho B out of our garage when a-hole husband came storming over and threatened me not to touch his wife. So I had to leave my wife cornered and defenseless, as to hold off a-hole husband in the driveway. After a few minutes of screaming at my wife, Psycho B went too far. She slapped my wife hard across the face, and her sharp nails left multiple scratch marks and bleeding. That was the last straw for me as my adrenaline kicked in. I'm not a violent guy. I like to think I'm normally smart by having a policy of the best defense is to not get into a fight in the first place. I stormed over to Psycho B, but a-hole husband grabbed my shoulder from behind and demanded to know where I was going. I turned round and gutted the idiot in the stomach with a right hook, then ignored him as he went down. I grabbed Psycho B from behind as she was still wailing on my wife, and threw her to the ground outside of our garage. I told them to rack off, polite way I said it, and leave us alone. We went inside and called the police to file a report. The police took notes and photos. I even said I punched a-hole husband in defense of my wife. I got nothing to hide. The police didn't do much apart from take notes, and that was it. The Jekyll and Hyde 180 they pulled on us from good neighbors to assaulting my wife really took us by surprise. In the weeks and months that followed, we got insults, glaring and threats from Units 10 and 11, as 11 joined their friends in condemning us. Most others in the complex took our side, as they either saw or heard what happened. One thing was clear, Units 10 and 11 had to go. We own our house and we ain't up and leaving our lives cause Psycho B wants to start drama with us. First I called Body Corp. They manage the complex, kind of like a commercial HOA, but not an HOA, as not run by residents of the complex but a company, and filed a report about both 10 and 11, showcasing all our documented proof of the harassment and threats towards us. Next I talked to their landlord who owned 10 and 11, and about 5 other houses in the complex as he's a good friend. He seemed concerned, but not enough to kick them out. Guess he really wants rent payments, so I decided to get rid of them myself. First I found their Wi-Fi network, and before I shut them out of it I got their email address, then locked them out of their own internet connection. I had their phone number from when we were good neighbors, and got myself a burner phone. I signed them up for every spam email I could find, ordered takeout to be paid for on delivery night of the week. I made sure their mailbox was stuffed with advertising. I even had men knocking on the door for promised fun, only to leave angry, and had a-hole husband and Psycho B at each other's throats. I made sure their phone was ringing at all hours of the night. They even threw the phone out the window. As a final favor, I had a friend who runs a dog washing business come around pretending they booked her. When they explained they had no dogs and told her to duck off, she finally understood what we'd been dealing with. They kept berating her to leave, throwing in racial slurs. Bad idea. She took out the hose meant to wash the dogs, and sprayed Psycho B and a-hole husband and inside the house all over their carpet. I think they finally got the hint and moved out only a month later. Number 11 followed them a few weeks after. The entire complex had a huge pool party and celebration, but I wasn't going to let them off that easy. That psycho wailed on my wife for no good reason. Prepare to lose it all. From when we were on good terms with Psycho B and a-hole husband, I knew they were on temp visas while trying to apply for permanent residency. I made sure to mention to immigration where they had moved to, thanks to friends in the rental market, and handed over the police report of them assaulting us in our own home and for no good reason. Seems Psycho B didn't make her own police report, so ours was the be-all and end-all, and was enough to get them kicked out of the country. I know the country they come from. It's hard to get work. Why a lot of people from that country move here. I feel zero remorse booting them out. Zero. Zip. Nada. Before anyone asks, I made sure to compensate said takeaway joints so they're not out of food. They delivered, and my friend the dog cleaner insisted on going over and pretending they called her after hearing of the other things I was doing to them. She wasn't planning on hosing them, just seeing how they would react and getting what she could on camera. Trust me when I say Psycho B and a-hole husband got what they deserved for what they said to my friend. Moral of the story, don't start crap with somebody and assault them for no reason. Few more points to clear up. Because I gut punched the husband and Psycho B assaulted my wife, the cops saw it as 2 separate assaults, and a legal friend of mine said if we went to court, the only people who would win would be the lawyers. I done deliveries for just shy of 2 weeks. I made sure to stop by all these places at later dates, and either forget a big amount of change or give them a big tip. Psycho B must have thought the chat with the police after the incident counted as a report, which it in some ways did. The wife and I went to the police station the following day and made an official report, and only wanted it for records after we were told only the lawyers would win. At least it's on official file if they did anything else. As for the deportation, I just didn't think of it then. Too consumed with getting them out of the house, to make the area safe for wife and I, to think that far ahead. The last story is, we don't eat or drink on the sales floor. In college and for a few years after, I worked summers and winters at my local auto parts store. The general manager GM has been one of my best friends for a long time and is a very fair boss. This is a national auto parts chain, so the next level of management above the GM is the district manager, DM, who might show up at the store a few times a year. This happened in my first few months on the job. Added a TLDR at the bottom. It was a slow day for customers because of the weather, so every employee was restocking shelves in the front and back of the store. The DM shows up with a bunch of Dunkin' boxes of coffee, cups, donuts, as well as a helium tank and some balloons. He tells us it's a random customer appreciation day, and we put up some balloons around the store. Because it was so slow, almost none of the coffee had been drank. Also, for some context, this was the first time I had ever seen or met our DM. He seemed kinda cocky. After a while, our GM tells us we can all help ourselves to some coffee. I pour a cup and set it on the cup holder on my stock cart. It needed time to cool, so I wasn't drinking it. Just had it on my cart and went back to stocking shelves. About 2 minutes later, the DM walks over and says, "Excuse me, we don't eat or drink on the sales floor," and pointed to my coffee. Keep in mind there was not a single customer in the store. I opened my mouth to say that I wasn't even drinking it, but my GM was behind him and gave me the "please just put it away so I don't have to deal with him" look. So I went and set it on a back shelf, went back to stocking the shelves. About 15 minutes later, there's a handful of customers at the store, and the DM is loudly distracting the GM as he's trying to ring out a customer. The DM is also guzzling a Dunkin' iced coffee. I smiled, walked right over to him in front of everyone, and said, "Excuse me, we don't eat or drink on the sales floor." He looked at me stunned and in total disbelief. Then the GM looked at him and said, "He's right, you can go set it on that shelf where he set his coffee earlier." Not only did he look like a fool, but his was iced coffee, so it was ruined, watered down, by the time he got to drink it. I just popped my cup in the microwave and went about my day. Be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and have a good day.